Hello, I'm Bob Wilhelm, and I'm a storyteller. Right now, I am in Eastport, Maine, sitting out on the deck, and that's Canada right behind me. So there's going to be some noise from the lobstermen bringing their boats in this afternoon, and maybe some wind and so forth. But let me just tell you about the two programs that I offer for training people in storytelling. This is both the online course, which begins this November, and is repeated a number of times over the years, probably once a year, maybe twice a year at different seasons. And it is for an introduction, a basic introduction on the art of storytelling. Now, this does not mean that it is only for beginners, but what it means is that it is a look at the art and the very specific and very precise use of storytelling as an oral narrative. So this is the basic form of storytelling, and from this comes many other forms of storytelling, though they're not technically storytelling in the full sense of the word. So a story writer, a short story writer, a poet, for example, is a storyteller, but drawing on the old oral tradition adds many elements that are not part of oral communication. The same with a playwright, a dramatist, who may tell a story, or a movie maker who may film a story, but is using a technique that is derived from oral storytelling. So you can come to storytelling as a writer, as a poet, as a biographer, as a memoirist, as a cinema critic or a filmmaker, many different forms of storytelling. But what this course offers you is an introduction into the very unique and specific art of the oldest form of storytelling, and that is oral telling, telling and listening between people face to face. So the introductory course online meets once a week for 10 weeks and is limited to 7 people because I really like to do tutorial work. I like to work with people individually, depending on their interest and their experience and their strengths in narrative. So we meet once a week and over the 10-week period, and we go through all the basic elements of storytelling that can be applied to other narrative art forms, but which are rooted in the oldest form of storytelling, oral telling and listening. So look at the description of what happens in each of the classes to get a better sense of what this would be about. Now, the other alternative is a master class in storytelling, which I do not do online, and which is also limited to 7 people, and it's over a week's period from a Monday through a Friday or Saturday in a residential setting. And everyone brings 3 stories that they have been working on. And the 3 stories are told at different times during the course of the week, so everyone gets a chance to listen to other storytellers and tell their own stories. So that means, there'll be about 21 stories, and I will also provide input on the art of storytelling. So this is for people who really want to explore oral storytelling. Again, they may be people who are experienced in other art forms. You might, for example, be a filmmaker, and you might really like to focus on what is narrative really about? How can I make a film that really respects and it takes full use of a narrative element? And, what is a narrative? And this particular masterclass will be helpful. So I invite people to bring 3 stories that they're working on. It could be one story that's a longer story, and you can tell it in episodes or tell parts of the episodes. You may not be able to tell the entire story. There may be 3 separate stories that seemingly aren't related, but they're stories that you're interested in. Maybe you're a teacher, or maybe you are a minister working in a church setting, a librarian, an editor for written works, a lawyer, a journalist. We all use stories. So the master class is meant to be in a specific setting. We meet for 4 hours in the afternoon. That gives you free time in the morning and in the evening. But we do gather together for meals if you'd like to join us. and it gives you a chance to really get the kind of feedback that is so, so important by having other people listen and tell you how they receive the story. And in a very supportive setting, and this is not a critical setting, uh, we're built around a narrative process that focuses on images. And we want to talk about, first of all, what images were most vivid to the listener. You know, you don't know. You think that you've included them in the story, but you may not find that they are the most vivid images, and that's what carries a story. At least that's what takes people into a story. What are the emotions that these images trigger? How do you interpret them? What are the meanings? And there's always many level of meanings to stories. And of course, how do you appropriate the story into your own life? So again, if you're someone who works as a counselor or as a therapist, psychiatrist, and you are involved with listening to people's narratives, this would be very, very helpful for you. But of course, it would also be helpful if you practice the art yourself. So, you know, telling and listening are really complementary. We can't be tellers unless we're good listeners, and many storytellers are not. They can perform, but they can't listen. And if they can't listen, that's a strange kind of a performance. It must do with ego and, you know, with projecting a self, ourselves as accomplished, etc., etc. But the real dynamic is learning how to listen and learning how to tell. If we only listen and we never tell, then we're just absorbing. We're not sharing. We're not giving back. You know, a story requires a dialogue. It's an I-thou encounter between people. And as we get to know people better and better in our lives, we can share stories more and more intimately. We don't start off with very intimate stories, and it's sort of a promiscuous self-revelation, as many theorists and narrative studies have noted. So there's a give and take. You know, it's a real storytelling community. You know, it's like you give a gift to somebody, and they're very happy with the gift, and they appreciate it, and they figure out what to give to you as a gift. And then later on, you gift them again. It's not a barter system, it's a gifting system. And that's what storytelling is about. So in a real community, a very exciting narrative community, it could be a religious community, it could be an ethnic community, it could be a geographic community, it could be a specific community of people who are deeply involved around some issue, around some central work that they're doing. That is involved with their identity. And these communities really thrive when we have stories. So I'm going to step back and tell you there are two options. One is the Introduction to the Art and Craft of Storytelling, an online course. I recommend it to anybody. If you're experienced or inexperienced, it doesn't make any difference. There's some very important principles in the craft. And this is usually not touched upon by people who teach storytelling from other perspectives. So a psychologist teaching it, a dramatist teaching it, a writer teaching storytelling will not draw on those deep and powerful things going back thousands of years that are always centered in speaking and listening and seeing with our mind's eye, our imagination. So that's the one thing, that's the online course. The other one is the master class. And the master class is, again, no more than 7 people gathered together. We all bring our stories. We bring 3 different stories, and we tell the stories, and then we watch what the reaction is from different people. And again, the setting is always supportive. It's always supportive. This is a basic human dynamic, the telling and listening. This is at the heart of our humanity, that the setting has to be supportive. I mean, this is not some technical skill that maybe you have and maybe you don't have. It's something that we all share as human beings. And it's really important to nurture this. It's really important that we grow in this ability to tell and listen, that we truly become storytellers and story listeners. So, I'm Bob Wilhelm. I've been doing this for half a century. I'd love to share this work with you online or in person, whatever works out best for you. Look at the webpage, look at the description, see if it fits for you time-wise, and if it fits for you in terms of location, if it's an on-site program. And let me know. If you have questions, just ask me. Ask me, and we can talk about it, and we'll see what we can do with that. So here I am, Eastport, Maine. You've heard the foghorns and the ships and the Coast Guard vessels all tooting their signals, and the gawking of seabirds, gulls in particular, all flying around. And I'm here, by the way, because I'm very interested in the stories of this part of New England in Maine, up by the Canadian border, and the history, the legends, the stories, and I've already heard some incredible tales from local people. I'm Bob Wilhelm. I am a storyteller.